In this video, we're going to uncover the truth behind AEW's failure with Britt Baker and their continuous misuse of one of their top stars. It's baffling, but Britt Baker has not been seen on AEW television since losing to TBS champion Mercedes Moné at the All In pay-per-view event. Now, even though she had returned from a long hiatus at Forbidden Door, her absence is glaring. Even if she's booked on future episodes of Collision or Rampage, the reality is we need Britt Baker back on Dynamite, AEW's main show. Rewind back to January. Britt Baker publicly stated that she felt like she needed to take a step back to let the spotlight shine on other women in the division. Around the same time, there were reports of her dealing with a back injury, something Britt herself has talked about in the past. While she did say that the injury was manageable, it turns out that it was far more severe than most people knew. Britt Baker faced a serious health scare, something we'll discuss shortly, but it's important to note that she has been a regular fixture on AEW television since the company's launch in 2019. She's been a cornerstone of the women's division, so her absence was noticed almost immediately by fans. However, details surrounding her health and status were few and far between, leaving a lot of speculation about why she had been sidelined. During an interview with Renee Paquette, Britt revealed the full extent of her injuries. Her back was in such bad shape that she had to get injections to manage the pain, explaining that it reached a point where she could barely walk. It wasn't just her back, though. Britt also suffered from a torn hip labrum, which was connected to her herniated disc, and she also had issues with her neck and wrist. It all started crumbling together, she said, explaining that it was time for her to heal both physically and mentally. Britt explained that she had been feeling stale as a performer and needed time away to reinvigorate herself. This absence lasted 9 months before she made her return at Forbidden Door, where she confronted Mercedes Moné, ultimately setting up the match that would lead into All In. Fast forward to All In, where Mercedes Moné was on television building up her match, eventually defending and retaining the TBS championship against Hikaru Shida. But what about Britt? After her match at All In, she wasn't on television for All Out, and as of the making of this video, she hasn't been seen on Dynamite, Collision, or Rampage since. Fans are left asking the obvious question, where is Britt Baker? During the All Out media scrum, Tony Khan addressed Britt Baker's status. He said it was great to see her back at AEW All In Wembley Stadium, calling it a great show and acknowledging that Britt is an important part of the roster. He mentioned how exciting it is to move from one big event to the next with Grand Slam and WrestleDream on the horizon. But here's the thing. It boggles the mind that Britt Baker, one of AEW's biggest stars, is once again sidelined. Here's the problem. Dynamite is AEW's main show, and Britt Baker belongs on Dynamite. Rampage and Collision don't carry the same weight. Dynamite is where AEW showcases its top stars. So if Britt isn't on Dynamite, what does that say about how AEW is handling her? This situation highlights the fact that AEW has a Britt Baker problem, and there are a few key reasons for this. First, Britt Baker has rarely been used properly. Even before her long hiatus, she wasn't being utilized to her full potential. Everyone remembers Britt Baker as a big star, but she hasn't been booked dominantly in years. AEW's lack of creative direction for her has been a consistent issue, and I have the numbers to back this up. In 2021, Britt Baker's breakout year, she went 22-8 and held the AEW Women's Championship. It was a phenomenal year for her, but things started to shift after that. In 2022, Britt worked 28 matches, going 17-11, and in 2023, she worked 22 matches, finishing with a 12-10 record. These are not the records of a top star being booked strongly. It's mind-boggling to see Britt Baker being booked like a mid-card talent when she should be leading the division. What makes this worse is that Britt Baker could easily be one of the biggest stars in the business. I don't know how much longer she has left on her AEW contract, but if I were close to her, I'd be telling her to seriously consider moving to WWE. There's no question WWE would have an interest in signing her. With Adam Cole no longer by her side in AEW, there's less of a reason for her to stay. Loyalty can only go so far, and at some point, Britt has to think about her own career and her potential in this industry. Loyalty is a two-way street. If AEW isn't showing the same loyalty to Britt that she's shown to them, then what's the point? Britt can't just sit on the sidelines, waiting for scraps. She has to take control of her career, and if AEW isn't going to book her as the star she is, then maybe it's time to consider her options elsewhere. So far in 2024, Britt has worked 3 matches, with a 2-1 record. That's fine, but it's nowhere near the dominant run she had in 2021. With new talent coming into AEW, such as Jamie Hayter, Mercedes Moné, and Toni Storm, there's no reason Britt shouldn't be involved in high-profile feuds with these talents. The roster is stacked with names like Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, and Mariah May, all of whom could make for exciting and memorable matches and promos with Britt. Yet, AEW can't seem to get out of its own way when it comes to properly booking her. It's frustrating to think about. Does Britt Baker have heat with Tony Khan? Is there something happening behind the scenes that we don't know about? There was an incident with MJF a few months ago, but that didn't seem to affect her booking in 2022 or 2023. So, what's going on? Britt Baker can cut promos, she can wrestle, and she's a great character. She's marketable, she looks the part, and she carries herself like a star. When you go through the checklist of what makes a top talent, Britt Baker ticks every box. So, why isn't AEW using her to her full potential? If Tony Khan and AEW are serious about making deals with networks like Warner Brothers, Discovery, or Fox, they can't afford to misuse talents like Britt Baker. AEW has cooled off in recent years, attendance is down, ratings have taken a hit, and general buzz around the company has diminished. From a business standpoint, it's in Tony Khan's best interest to make AEW thrive, and a thriving AEW needs its biggest stars on television. Why wouldn't you want Britt Baker on your main show if you're Tony Khan? It doesn't make any sense. You have a big star with massive popularity who delivers every time she's given the chance, and yet she's sitting on the sidelines. It's mind-boggling. If you look at AEW's history with Britt Baker, the trend is clear. She had a breakout year in 2021 but has been underutilized ever since. In 2022 and 2023, her win-loss record and overall usage were lackluster compared to what we'd expect from a top talent. And now, in 2024, we're left waiting to see if things will change. With so many new talents emerging in AEW, it's critical for Britt to be involved in meaningful storylines, but AEW seems to have a pattern of sidelining her. It's not just about putting her on Rampage or Collision. She belongs on Dynamite, where the biggest matches and storylines happen. There's still time for AEW to correct course with Britt Baker, but the question remains, will they? Or will Britt continue to be a secondary player in a division that she helped build? Only time will tell, but as fans, we can't help but be frustrated by the wasted potential. Britt Baker deserves better, and if AEW can't deliver that, it may be time for Britt to explore other options. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest news in wrestling. Keep the conversation going in the comments, and let's hope for better days for Britt Baker in AEW.